Well, hello there, and welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. This is where we take a fresh look at ourselves and the world right around us. It's a call-in show, a live call-in show, so we expect your participation. We're going to give out the number and introduce the topic, and then you take it away. You take it to great heights. Why? Because you've been doing it for 6.5 years, and we love you for that. You always show up for us. We learn from you. You are the catechist here. This is a safe platform for you to share your stories, and we learn and we grow. We walk away a little bit changed, hopefully a little bit closer to God, Jerry.
That's right. Yeah, so do get ready to call in. I'll give you the number, and then we will set up the topic for you and let you know what we're going to be talking about today. 833-288-EWTN, 833-288-3986. We're talking today about, has your local community been impacted by a tragedy? As I wrote on the show website, unfortunately, tragedy strikes communities on a daily basis. As for example, a school bus carrying players and cheerleaders, skids off the road, leaving some dead or injured. A child goes missing and a frantic search ensues. A tornado touches down, leaving a trail of wreckage. Sadly, these kinds of things happen on a local level more often than we might realize. And so we're asking you, has your local community been impacted by such a tragedy? 833-288-3986.
We do get a lot of calls on the show, so when you do share this tragedy in your community, we want to be respectful of that because, usually lives are impacted and not for the better when this happens. It's really, the aftermath is quite, very filled with a lot of sorrow and grief. So we want to be respectful, but if you can condense down the story and give us the details in a shortened version, it would help so that we could keep the calls moving and we could explore this and see what everybody learned from this tragedy. What was the outcome? Are you still suffering the effects of it? Things like that. But we want to really highlight on the local communities because, let's face it, the mainstream media is, they may have something on it on the local news. It may even make the national stage. But it's like okay, we're moving on to the next topic. So they don't really dive deeply. They don't really uncover some of the things that we need to learn and grow from. So if a tragedy has hit your community in the recent weeks or months or years, please call in and share the story with us. We really want to hear from you. The number to dial is 833-288-3986. That's 1-833-288-3986. And I'm super proud, Jerry. I didn't give the pledge drive number.
That's right. Debbie is hosting the fund drive, the Spirit Drive for AM 1260 The Rock in Cleveland going on this week. And again, don't forget, always support your local radio station or network. Support EWTN. It is all listener supported and up to you to keep it going strong. So we really invite you and exhort you to do that.
Absolutely.
But here on the program today, has tragedy impacted your local community? 833-288-3986. I think we can all kind of point to a lot of things, Debbie, but as I was reflecting on this topic for today, I recalled in my mind a year or two after I graduated from high school, I lost several of my school buddies. I think they had been drinking, unfortunately, and they were on their way, on this windy, twisty country road, and they came upon a curve and just didn't even negotiate it. There was another car behind them trying to keep up with them, and they said they were going about 100 miles an hour. And they just went off. They didn't, negotiate the curve, and the car just went into the trees. And I'll leave the other details out of it right now. But it was really sad. And then they put the wreckage of the car on display at a local gas station. I guess just to kind of shake us all up a little bit, scare us a little bit, into not partying and driving and stuff like that. But It was really rough, because you go to school with these guys and you know them, you're on the sports teams with them, and all of a sudden they're gone, and this was a tragedy that affected our local community when I was growing up.
Yeah, and that's really hard. And did they have set up a memorial or something in the area where it happened?
I don't know if they did. I don't recall. I don't think they did. No, but yeah, it was very, very, very awful, very ugly situation.
Yeah. Well, a tragedy for For our community and for my personal family was my brother-in-law's death, Marty's brother, and it actually made the national news because it was a big story because he was a photo radar manager. You know, the ones that were there in the van on the side of the road, and it's because of my brother-in-law's death that they took those manned photo radar vans off of the streets and they made them automatic. But somebody pulled up behind the van and shot up the van, and they shot my brother-in-law in the chest several times, and he died in 2009. It was actually the month we were going to get married. He was our best man for the wedding, and we had to postpone, obviously, the wedding for 6 months. But it was a tragic, and it hit the community hard because he was a beautiful man. He was a golf pro. A lot of people knew him, and he was just so sweet. And the whole entire, really, the state of Arizona was so supportive of the family, and it made national news. It was very tragic, but it's just so sad. The other part of the story that was sad is the person that ended up doing this killing is in jail, and he is Catholic. He's Catholic, and so there was a lot of processing to happen there with forgiveness and everything. So it was tough. It was tough. So when tragedy hits your home, hits your community, let's talk about it and see if we can learn and grow. We learned a lot from my brother-in-law's death, but some of it wasn't so good. It actually split apart the family. So things like that can happen. It can split apart communities. Please dial in and share with us if tragedy has hit your community. 833-288-3986.
Okay, that is the phone number to call. You can also email take2@EWTN.com. If you're watching the video stream, we're waving to you wonderful folks looking on in Facebook and YouTube. You can post your comments there. Also, you can post on the show website, take2show.com, and you can text the letters EWTN to 55000. Wait for a response. Put in your first name and your comments. Might be a small data rate depending on your plan. But again, we're talking today about has tragedy impacted your local community? All right, so give that a little bit of thought and prayer, and we would love to have you join in on the conversation right now. Matt Gabensky is screening your calls. Rich Jesse is our producer. The board op is Jeff Burson. Social media being monitored by Charles Beery. 833-288-3986. Join us.
This is Conversations with Consequences, where we delve deeper into issues affecting our church, our country, and our core, the family.
As Catholics, we need to be informed, aware, and able to talk through some of the tough topics that we're facing in our culture and in our world. Conversations with Consequences gives us the tools to do so.
It's not enough to pray. We have to be a light for the world.
Conversations with Consequences, this Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Christ is the answer, with Father John Riccardo.
I repeat, I'm sure ad nauseum to the guys who are here, a line from Pope Benedict Emeritus now, who used to say over and over again, to be a Christian is not the result of an ethical choice, but the result of an event, an encounter, a meeting with the living God in the person of Jesus Christ. This and nothing less is what it means to be a Christian. So we said the new evangelization is new in ardor. That's a kind of old-fashioned word. What in the world is ardor? Ardor is zeal, fervor, passion. Are you passionate about Jesus? Passionate about Jesus? Are you zealous for Jesus? Are you fervent for Jesus? Are we fervent for the gospel? Are we passionate about helping this world come to know him?
Well, this is your show, Take Two, with Jerry and Debbie and you. Debbie and I have shared how tragedy impacted our local communities at a certain point in our lives. And if that has happened in the area where you live, as Debbie said earlier in the program, you don't hear about a lot of these things. Some of them make national news. It can be an abduction or a murder or something like that. But for the most part, these are things that really just kind of, impact those who live in the local areas. So if you have something that you've experienced, has it brought your community together, made you closer? Has it created rifts of any kind? We just want to talk about this today and just really see, how we've all reacted to things like this. So you can join on the conversation at 833-288-3986. And before we go to your calls, I want to tell you about the EWTN Religious Catalog. We talk about it a lot here because it's got all the religious items that you might be looking for, and also email. So EWTN's Religious Catalog is your online destination for Catholic books, DVDs, rosaries, devotionals, holy reminders, and more. So buy Catholic, shop EWTNRC.com today, and receive regular emails from the EWTN Religious Catalog. Just visit EWTN.com and click on subscribe, and you'll be all set.
We'd like you to join us in this conversation. We're talking about tragedy hitting your local community and how that affected everyone involved. Please call in at 1-833-288-3986. I didn't quite, Jerry, I didn't quite share a lot about what happened to my brother-in-law, so I'm getting a lot of messages saying, can we read the entire story? Folks, all you have to do is internet search. Just put in Doug Giorgiani 2009. You can even put in photo radar. You'll get the whole story. You'll get the media coverage. You'll get the national coverage and everything on it. And you can read the whole entire story and see all of what happened. And when I share about that, the man that killed my brother-in-law, I don't think I personally believe that he didn't really know that those vans were manned by a human being and my brother-in-law was in there. I don't believe that. The way I found out he was Catholic, it's kind of unusual. When my brother-in-law died, I was talking with somebody in the Diocese of Phoenix, and they said, yeah, we knew that what happened because this person actually led tour groups in Arizona, and they sponsored a lot of they sponsored using our Catholic newspaper at the diocese. So that's how they knew he was Catholic and everything. And so I thought, wow, this is really hitting home, and it's a potentially a fellow Catholic. So there was a lot of forgiveness that needed to happen, but the family really never recovered from my brother-in-law's death. To be honest with you, it impacted Marty's family. I think terribly. It split us kind of all apart because everybody kind of took a little bit different sides and of what they thought happened and everything. But I will tell you this: at the beginning, the media was very polite and kind to the family, and then they started to get strange. I mean, they were releasing audio clips of my brother-in-law dying, and when he was talking to his wife, he was able to get a phone call off to his wife while he was dying in the van, and they started playing those, and it was the family that said, you need to pull those down. This is traumatic enough. We don't need to make this a spectacle or some kind of thing to get people to, I don't know, have a kind of a morbid sense, of curiosity of what happened. And so it was really tough. But I will tell you, when tragedies hit, you learn, especially if you have your faith to lean on, you go to prayer. And when we were in the hospital, the whole family did pray the rosary together before everything started to unfold. So I do believe with a strong foundation in your faith, you can lean on that during tragedies. So it helped me anyway.
Okay. What about you, Take Two Family? This is your program. We are talking today about if tragedy has impacted your local community. And unfortunately, these things happen, and it can really impact a community in a lot of different ways. So has this happened where you are, where you live? 833-288-3986. We're going to start with Ruth in Sioux City, Iowa, and Ruth is listening on Siouxland Catholic Radio. Hi, Ruth. Welcome to Take Two.
Thank you. I love your show.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Ruth.
Very much. It just what your request made me reflect back to when we lived in a community where 4 teenagers were tragically murdered and witnessed by our priest. But the nutshell that I took away from that event is when I helped the youth minister and them at the church when they had the people gather together. It was an open Indian reservation, so there was people of everybody was in the same room grieving, because at that point they didn't know, they hadn't identified all the bodies, and that it still just brings back such memories. But I think of how children can teach us so many things. And the thing I left with that is the kids that were murdered were both from both Native American and then so it was something that the kids don't see color. They were friends to each other. And I think of what Peter McCullough said, what we're experiencing today in our world is sometimes a lack of compassion. So if we just, don't see color and just go out in compassion in whatever we need to do in our life, what a difference we could make. But just wanted to share that experience, and
Yeah.
it takes time to.
Well, Ruth, it's very sad to hear what happened, and it's interesting. Some of the details are very similar to what I shared about how tragedy struck my local community, because there was an Indian reservation. We all went to school together, and you're right. We didn't see, I'm white, you're Native American, you're this, you're that. I mean, we were all friends. Like I said, we were teammates on the sports teams and all of that. And this car was actually the car that went off the road was headed back to the Indian reservation. And there was even one of our friends from high school was just about to get into the car, and somebody else said, "Hey, no, I need to ride up there." So he got out and gave his spot to somebody else. And I just remember for him it was, he was, I guess they call it sometimes survivor's guilt or whatever. He had to deal with, knowing that he could have been very easily, one of those killed. But yeah, so you said I think you said that the priest witnessed this. Would he see the actual killings take place, Ruth? Is that what you meant, or was it something else?
I think just shortly after. I think is when he lived across the street. But yeah, it was just a learning lesson, I think, for all adults to see how kids witness to us as adults. They were friends, and that's what God made us all part of the human race.
Sure.
That's what we need to just look at through the eyes of compassion to each other. And we all have, different crosses or different flaws or things but with compassion, we can, be there for each other. But that was the thing that I just, my vision was just how everybody came together at a time like that. But Unfortunately, sometimes it's in those tragedies that we learn that. But
yeah. Well, when you display compassion, when you show compassion, when you first go to compassion and instead of getting in your head and getting all these thoughts and feelings. Excuse me, Jerry. Please take it. Take it.
Debbie, we mentioned Debbie hosting a pledge drive this week, and so she and I, as we joke around on the program, we kind of share this frog in our throats back and forth a little bit. So, but I'm not sure where you were going with that, Debbie, but
okay,
I don't know
I'm back.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say.
Thank you for stalling in the frog.
Sure.
I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning on a wonderful pledge drive for the Rock, Ruth, in Cleveland, Ohio. It's going great, but it does take a toll on your voice. So, but real quickly, when you show compassion and you lead with compassion instead of going to your head and having all these thoughts or even having, anger or all these other feelings and emotions happening, compassion moves mountains, I believe. I truly believe it. When you look at the scriptures and you look at Jesus and when he walked this earth, when he was in ministry, right? What did he do? He showed compassion. Okay, compassion. He was moved with compassion, and he was moved in such a way that it led everything he did. And then there's time to process and to figure out what's going on and to make the necessary statements or the actions that follow. But compassion is where you really reach people deeply, and you can leave an impact in a way that can allow people to survive and to make it through the most horrific situations. And we saw that, you go back in history, we saw that in Nazi Germany during the Holocaust, and what happened to the 11 million innocent people that they were slaughtered. Those that showed compassion to those that survived that, right? The great compassion. They were able to get through that tragedy and see all of their neighbors and relatives die. They were killed, right? They were able to get through that because they held on to the compassion that others had for them. So you see where I'm going with this, Jerry? We can really change how people get through horrific situations if we would really reach them at that compassionate level. I agree with Ruth, and our children and our youth and our young adults can teach us that, because I think they do, for the most part, lead with compassion.
And I think I have a daughter that was born on the feast day of St. Kateri Tekakwitha, and I think it's been branded on my heart, that love for their people too. But yeah, I just witnessed so much compassion from those people, and it's just heartwarming. Kind of dovetails to what Jeanette talked about early in the earlier program, that people need witnesses more than teachers, and that wherever we are, a grocery store or church or anywhere, that we need to be witnesses of what we as Catholics know and believe. And and this is why I love your show.
Ruth,
it gives that little ammo that you need to gives ammo to our virtues and then corrects our flaws. And so keep doing what you're doing. And
thanks, Ruth. But Ruth, we do this together. See, that's what we believe. Jerry and I are firm believers of this, that we are journeying together. That's why we call it the Take Two family. We're a family. You called in, you contributed. We're doing this together. We're learning from you. Hopefully you're learning something from us. And we're changed. We're forever changed. And we're journeying on that same, we're pilgrims on a journey, hopefully journeying back to God, right? Because that's where we're supposed to go. So Ruth, we're right with you. And that's why we love this platform to come together, because where are you going to do it in this world? It's not happening anymore. Everybody's on their own little island. So we wanted to create this safe place, and EWTN allowed us to do this, and we're so grateful.
Yeah, especially, like you said, for these times when more people are isolated. So we needed that much more. Well, bless you. We'll keep you in our prayers, and we know you pray for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ruth. Appreciate your call.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, the Take Two family is just fantastic, and that's you summed it up well, Debbie. I think and it's just really amazing. Debbie and I and the show team, usually after each show, we just sort of as we pick our jaws up off the floor, we say, "Wow, you guys just did another amazing job," and it's just such a blessing to learn and grow and be inspired by your takes, your lived experiences. So we really appreciate your participation in this program.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you, Jerry, for covering for me, because now you sent your California frog back over to Arizona, and I've got it. I'm going to send him back over to you, though.
Well, I thought you did this morning, because it was my day to read at Mass this morning. And right as Father was doing the opening prayers and everything, I was like, I was trying to clear my throat. I had a bottle of water, thankfully, and everything went okay. But I thought of you at Mass. I thought you sent the frog back to me.
The frog, yes. But we've nicknamed the frog Fully Rely on God, right?
Yeah, right. There you go.
There you go. But Jerry, let's go back to Ruth real quickly. Ruth, thank you so much for contributing to this conversation. We're talking about when tragedy hits your community. But the other thing too, Jerry, that Ruth brought up about Christian witnesses, it's great to talk the talk, okay? Pretty much everybody can talk the talk. We really need to walk the walk. We really need to practice, and be out there and really be Christ to each other, just like Mother Teresa did when she was alive, walking this earth and in her ministry work. And that's what I think the beauty of Catholic radio does. It allows us to hear the message, the gospel message, our baptismal call, what we're called to do, to go out and evangelize and to be Christ to others, and we can practice it. And we get fed more and more on Catholic radio. So that's another reason, Jerry, I say, when your Catholic radio station comes to you and says, we need the necessary funds to continue to broadcast, please give generously.
Yes, please indeed. All right, 833-288-3986. Diane, hold on. We're going to get to you momentarily. We do have some open phone lines, though, today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. And we need you to make the program what you make it every day. So we're talking today about tragedies in our local communities. We hear about the major ones that happen, but we want to talk about, if you've experienced something in your local area, how that has impacted you and affected the community as well. 833-288-3986. And Debbie Karen, she is one of our faithful listeners, emailed take2@EWTN.com and said, I'm in South Louisiana. Hurricane Ida was, quote, visiting us for 6 hours. She destroyed a lot. And we remember that only too well, don't we?
Oh, yes. And I understand people are still, in hotels and other places, and they can't seem to recover from this and get the funds to pick up, and to repair. So it's tragic. That is. We need to pray for folks in our communities because a lot of people are hurting. But let's talk about that some more and see if we can walk away with a better understanding of things here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
The words of Blessed Carlo Acutis.
What does it matter if you can win 1,000 battles? If you cannot win against your own corrupt passion, it does not matter. The real battle is with ourselves.
Hi, I'm Doug Keck. This is an EWTN bookmark brief. Just had the pleasure of speaking with Father Cedric Pesena, CP, author of Death, the Final Surrender. So tell us, Father, what's this book about?
This book is about the death experience, what we can expect when we die and what's going to happen after. I talk about who God is, what you can expect, and the glory and the hope to come. This is a life-changing book, and it changed my life, these experiences. I call them near-death experiences. In this book, I also talk about grieving, how to grieve well, and to move beyond being stuck if you have a loved one that dies. So this book is eminently hopeful, and it's a book that I believe that you will never read anything like it. It's a book that everybody on the face of the earth should read. Okay, very good. Father Cedric Pesena, CP, Death, the Final Surrender, available through our EWTN religious catalog, EWTNRC.com for all things Catholic. This has been a bookmark brief. We shall see you next time.
I am a very happy, grateful revert to the faith. About 12 years ago, I was surfing the channels and I found EWTN. I didn't even know it existed, and I heard Mother and remembered that years ago I had told a Catholic nun at a church in Boston that I was visiting that I missed the faith, and she said, you will come back. And when I was listening to Mother Angelica, I remembered that.
EWTN, communicating the faith.
Hi, this is Janet Williams. We embrace the essence of feminine spirituality on Women of Grace tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern here on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Thank you for tuning in, whatever method you're using to either listen to or watch Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. And our topic today is tragedies, how they impact local communities. 833-288-3986 if you have something you would like to share. And as mentioned and promised, we're going to go to Diane next, who is in Minnesota. And Diane is listening to us on Alexa. Hello, Diane. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi, how are you today?
Doing pretty well. Appreciate the call very much.
Sure. I don't know that this is impacted a local community, but it's been with me since I was 10 years old. I grew up in Korea, and I remember back in 1976 when they had an incident at the DMZ, and 2 of our Army officers were killed by North Koreans wielding axes and clubs, and it was an absolute shock to me. I don't know how I was able to function in school because it was always on my mind. And it was a tree cutting incident. There was a poplar tree, a big tall one, that was blocking the view of across the DMZ for both sides. So they were going to go out with a joint effort to trim this tree so that they could see each other better. And while they were out there, one of the North Korean officers commanded his men to attack, and they killed Captain Boniface and Lieutenant Barrett. And I will never, ever forget this. It has just shaken me to my core. So I will always remember them.
Wow. Yeah, especially at the age of 10, Diane. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I can fully understand why you said it just kind of stayed with you and haunted you for a long time. And I think, I vaguely remember hearing about something like that. I'm not really sure if that was the same thing or not, but go ahead.
From what I've heard, I've talked to people and they don't recall it. People that are my age and older, I've asked them, do you remember this happening? And they're just like, no, we never heard of it. And I wrote a paper about this in my English class because we had to choose a subject of some kind. And I tell you, when I finished writing this paper, I sat at my desk and just wept for about half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was such a catharsis to talk about this.
Sure.
So, it's touching me even now. So.
Yeah, we can tell. Yeah, and tragedies are so often a result of human nature, the bad side of human nature coming out. And in this case, that's, as you described it, that's exactly what it was. And it's so unfortunate. These kinds of things should not happen. And yet, this is, God gave us free will, and we can exercise that will for good or for evil. Yeah, and in this case, it was certainly not for the good. Debbie, what do you think?
Yes.
Go ahead, Diane.
Go ahead, Diane.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, it was a few months later, in fact, probably the next summer, my Girl Scout troop actually took a field trip. Not many people can say my Girl Scout troop went to the DMZ, but we did. And we got to see not only the tree itself where it was cut, but there's a place at the base at the DMZ, which ironically is called the monastery, because I believe the guys who were there referred to themselves as the Merry Mad Monks of the DMZ. And I guess it was like their little club or whatever. They have a chunk of the wood in a glass case. And I got to see that, and I must have stood there for just staring at this piece of wood because, everything was just going through my mind. So.
Well, Diane, it's interesting as you're sharing this story. We can hear that you have a level of trauma from this, right? It has impacted you.
Yes.
Exactly. You said it. It affected you at your core, and that's the thing about tragedies. Some people it impacts them, but they're still able to move on, and they're able to push it back, deep into the back of their their brains, if you will, and push it back, or push it down emotionally, and they're able to still go on and function pretty well. And then there's others that it does impact them, and it rises up in an emotional level because it has affected you. So for whatever reason at that point in your life, what you experienced, what you heard, what you read, everything, all your senses engaged at that time when you were young, when you were 10 years old, I believe you said, it impacted you, and it has lasted now, through your life. But you said something, if I caught it correctly, you said speaking about it is very cathartic. And I just wanted to say, Diane, I think that's healthy what you're doing, because by you speaking about it and processing it in your words, communicating it to all of us, we are talking with you on it and processing with you, and we are exploring the feelings that you're feeling even now, many years later. I do think that is very helpful, and we need to do that as Christians to support one another, because the last thing we want, right, Diane, is for a fellow Christian, to be internally, still suffering to some level, right? So we want to be there for one another. And that's why we're bringing up tragedies, because a lot of people are going through tragedies that are happening right now, and they've happened when they were young like you, and we carry that with us. And
we do.
We do. Yeah. So this is healthy. I would say it's a healthy conversation, right?
Yes, and I do appreciate your taking the time to listen to me.
Oh, well,
I really exactly that.
Yeah, well, we're grateful that you called in, Diane. I mean, again, as we say all the time on this program, it really is driven by you, the listeners, and we appreciate you taking time out of what I'm sure is probably a busy day for you to join us here in the conversation.
It's my pleasure, believe me.
Okay.
Well, and Diane, it just goes to show your heart. You're a deep, you feel deeply, you think deeply. That's a beautiful thing. That's a God thing. You know, have people told you that you love deeply? We can actually feel it as you're speaking, even the way you put emotion behind your words.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. It's gonna take me a little bit of time to come back to life here.
That's okay.
You're a beautiful soul, Diane. We
Yeah.
love you.
You go with our prayers, Diane. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you. 833-288-3986. Great calls coming in. There is an open phone line now that Diane was on. If you'd like to get in line there and share how tragedy has impacted your local community, it doesn't have to be like yesterday. It could be many years ago. It could be fairly recent. 833-288-3986.
Okay, where are we going next?
We have some social media. We've got a lot of calls.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
You want to do some social media? That would be great.
Yeah, well, Betsy watching on YouTube. Hi, Betsy, and everybody there watching on
We're
YouTube
waving.
and Facebook. Betsy says, we were really affected by the wildfires this year, and I read in the local paper that 15 to 20 people a day are dying from COVID in Spokane County in Washington. The sad part is that there are still some people that think COVID is a myth. That's what Betsy had to share with us on YouTube.
And Colette?
Yeah, Colette says, go ahead. Yeah, please.
There is a story about tragedy in my community, but it is too horrific to mention here. However, after the incident, it brought our community together and stronger, more stronger than ever. Wow, Colette. So it's too horrific to mention, but it brought the community together. Well, you know, that's the one thing that is I guess you could say the shining part of a horrific. I don't even know if you can say there's even a shining part of a horrific, too horrific to mention. But when a community comes together, there's strength. Usually there's faith that comes out of that. People lean on one another and they do find God in each other, which is a beautiful thing, right, Jerry?
Yeah, well, we know from Scripture, Romans chapter 8, I think, all things work together for good to those who love God. So you're right. If we can call Good Friday good, then there is a silver lining in everything. Sometimes it's very, very difficult, and some people may never realize the good that can come out of something like this, and that would be very understandable if they didn't, given how horrific some of these things are that happen.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to share, Michael? This is so sad. They lost their pastor.
Mm-hmm. Michael is watching on YouTube. Hello, Michael. He says, please pray for the parish community of the Immaculate Conception in Glenville who just lost their pastor to heart issues. You can be assured of our prayers, yes.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going back to the phones, and tell me where we're going next, Jerry. I just want to make sure I have the right person.
Mary is next.
Okay.
Mary is listening to us on Sirius XM 130, driving through Illinois. Hi, Mary.
Gotcha.
Good to have you on the program.
Hi, how are you today?
Pretty well. How are you doing, Mary?
Good. I just wanted to share, this was a local Catholic family. I did not know them personally, but I have followed the story. Their young daughter, I think she was 14 at the time, was in a jet ski accident and suffered a traumatic brain injury. They have prayed for many years for a full recovery. Unfortunately, that has not come to pass. But they put up pictures of her. Her name is Danielle, and she's from Springfield, Illinois. And they've put up pictures of her throughout the community, prayers for her, and billboards. And I just feel like when a tragedy like that happens and people begin to pray, yes, they're praying for her, but I think God is working miracles in those people's lives that are doing the praying. And I don't think that family will ever know in this life how this tragedy has maybe affected other people and helped them come closer to God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's so sorry to hear about what happened to Danielle. And you're right. I mean, the key is we need to hope and pray that somehow we can grow closer to God through these incidents and tragedies. And in fact, it kind of, one thing kind of struck very close to home for me, Mary, very recently. My pastor's brother's son, so it would be his nephew, just diving into I think a lake or an ocean or something, and there was a rock, and he hit that, and there was a very serious spinal cord injury. He actually slept on it, that night, and ended up going to see the doctor. And the doctor said if it had been like one tiny little millimeter worse or something, he would have been paralyzed. So, these things hit local communities, they hit families, and it changes everybody's lives instantly sometimes. And it's really so sad. You can't prepare for something like this. I have such empathy, Debbie, for families who have to go through something like what Danielle went through and her family. It really, it's so impactful.
Yes, absolutely. We will be praying at Mary. I was entering everybody into the book that you mentioned, and also all of the prayer warriors around this family as well. This kind of hits back home for me because in my mom's group, when my oldest son was young at the church, one of the members of the group, her son was in a jet ski accident on one of the lakes in Arizona. Believe it or not, there are man-made lakes in Arizona. And so we did have an accident there, and her son was aerovac'd, and he suffers a lasting injuries as well, but he was aerovac to the is that how you say it, Jerry? Aerovac? I believe that's right?
Yeah, I'm not
sure.
He
was air transported to the hospital. The interesting thing about it that her and her husband were first responders, and they couldn't get to their son when he was transported to the hospital. So they prayed really hard that somebody would be holding his hand as they were flying their son to the hospital. It turns out that one of their friends who worked with them as first responders happened to be on that flight and held their son's hand the whole entire time. And it was just tragic. And they've still to this day been suffering from the effects of it. But it does, a couple things happen. If the family is strong in their faith, they can and will hold it together. If they're not, there may be some, division, and there could even be possibly the marriage could end, and things like that could happen. I know that there's another couple I know that's what happened to them. But the community that rallies around them and is the prayer warriors and supports them, it does change you forever, because you start to realize life is very precious. It's very short. Hug your kids one more time. Make sure your kids are safe. It does heighten all of those feelings of wanting to really make sure that that person that you love so very much understands that they are loved and they're cared for, and you want to, kind of protect everything. So it does change people when they go through these situations like this that you are mentioning about Danielle, Mary. I just want to say my heart breaks for that family. It's got to be very tough on a daily basis for them.
Yes, I'm sure it is, but to me, they've just been a beautiful model of caring for her. They have her at home. They care for her at home. And I'm just very impressed with their faith and how they've been able to, care so beautifully for her, even with her disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, praise God. Praise
That's
God
beautiful.
for that.
Strong people of faith.
Yes.
Yeah.
And thank you. Yes, please remember the family in your prayers.
Yeah, we certainly will. And thank you, Mary, for calling and being part of the program today. We appreciate that so much. We got more calls we're going to get to. Vicki is watching the video feed stream on Facebook. Hi, Vicki and everybody. And Vicki says there's a Catholic family here in Colorado, members of a small mountain church. She says, I'm being vague on purpose. I loved to see them every week at church going to communion, The dad would hold one of the youngest kids, and the same with the mother. The other 6 followed. They had 8 children. They are well-loved by the community and church. On July 4th, 2013, they were walking back to their car when a drunk driver hit and killed the father, mom, and 3 girls were severely injured. And, yeah, Debbie, I can see you reacting to that. So sad, so sad. And, again, something avoidable, something very avoidable.
Yeah, I had a vision in my head of seeing that, and I just can't even imagine. I mean, the other children witnessing that, and that is tragic. What happened? Very sad. And the other thing too, folks, about that, when you see or hear an ambulance or the fire trucks going by, stop for a moment and say a prayer, because somebody's life is going to change that day. Somebody's life is changed. I remember seeing an accident right in front of me, Jerry, where the motorcycle was somebody went through the light and they hit this motorcycle, and he flipped off of the motorcycle, fell right in front of my car, and he died.
Oh, my.
And I thought to myself, somebody's going to get a knock on the door and say, your loved one died today, and everything changes. Everything completely changes. So it made me realize that the next time I hear those sirens going off, I'm going to definitely stop and pray, because somebody's life is changing.
You and I did a show on that, remember, a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Are you the one who prays for somebody when you hear a siren or see an ambulance or something? Yeah. Yep.
So sad. Very sad. Okay.
Well, I want to mention real quickly, the Catholic Cafe is another program that we encourage you to tune into Sunday mornings at 10:30 Eastern Time. Join Deacon Jeff Drozimski and company for a comfortable conversation about Catholic belief from the corner booth of the Catholic Cafe, Sunday mornings, 10:30 Eastern Time, here on many of these same EWTN radio affiliates.
Okay, we're going to go back to the phones. Ronnie in West Texas has been waiting so patiently. Hi, Ronnie. Welcome to Take Two.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ronnie. Go right ahead.
Yeah, we had I live in a small city of West in Texas, and actually now I live just outside of West, but grew up about 400 yards away from where the fertilizer explosion happened in 2013. And so we had, 15 people died in that accident. Hundreds of houses were lost in the explosion, and there's still a lot of people that are working to, overcome the scars that are still there. But at the same time, we've had such a blessing of an outpouring of resources at the time to be able to help people rebuild, an outpouring of prayers and love from people throughout our whole country, and in some cases even the world, because of all the media that came right after that blast happened.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I seem to recall as well. Wasn't there a fire, Ronnie, and the responders were there trying to deal with the fire, and then the explosion happened? Is that how it played out?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct. There were 15 people killed, 12 of which were first responders who were there on scene trying to help with either the fire or some EMS people as well who were there trying to help with people who were injured.
Yeah. Yeah, it's reminiscent of 9/11, actually, in a sense. These first responders had to go there with the knowledge that something like this could happen, given the nature of it being a fertilizer plant. And still they went there, in an attempt to control things and protect lives and property. And unfortunately, in the ensuing explosion, they lost their lives. Very, very tragic. And, it's something that I'm sure it's a pretty small community there, Ronnie, I would guess, right?
Yes, we're a community of a little shy of 3,000 in the city limits, a bigger community with the school district and the church. But even that it happened at almost 8 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. The next day, we packed our Catholic church, is the biggest church in the town, with mourners, with people in support of everyone who was suffering, and had just a wonderful non-denominational service to be able to let everybody kind of know it's bigger. God's there. There were hundreds of media there as well, and even at that time, people were already getting a little tired of seeing them all over the place, looking for interviews and things. They were up in the choir loft, and one of our guys in the choir loft kind of got a little bit sideways with one of them, and I'm a deacon in our church, so they asked me to go up and kind of talk to him about it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of told him, I said, well, it's their cameras that are bringing this out to everybody else, so everybody can see how God is working in our midst. And at that point, his face fell, and he went, loved the guy, and really, it was a wonderful thing to see.
Thank you for being a deacon in the church. Thank you so much for that. But as I hear you speak about this, and such a sad story, and you said about the effects, the wounds, the scars are still there. The wounds are healing, but the scars are there. I think to myself, why is it, Lord? I'm kind of praying out loud. Why is it, Lord, that we have to have a tragedy to remember to cling together and stay together and to fill the churches and to be there for one another? Why do we have to wait for those things or experience those really tragic events in our lives to get us to realize that things are really important when we do focus on our faith and we do stick together as the mystical body of Christ? And I hope and pray that we're all listening to these stories and these conversations that we're having right now on this show, and we realize, let's not wait for the next tragedy. Let's start living like we're in a constant, maybe even a constant state of not depressing, but a constant state of tragic ways, because then we will cling to one another. What do you think, Deacon? We need to get back to seeing Christ in one another, depending on one another. The relationship is obviously vertical, us and God, but it's also, horizontal. We're to be with each other in community.
Amen to that. I think, even and with the current COVID pandemic and the fact that, in a lot of cases, we fell out of habit of going to Mass. That's and right. So we need to remember that as well, that's where we gather. That's where, when we're in trouble, and we need to be. And I don't think we remember, like you say, we're always in trouble until we're there for our eternity.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of tragedy and evil and misery going on all over the world. So I agree with what you said, Debbie, and Deacon Ronnie. Thank you again, like Debbie said, for your answering that call to the diaconate, and thanks for answering our call to join us here on the program today. We appreciate it very much. Andrea, near Cedar Rapids, we are going to hear the closing music right about now. There it is. So we appreciate you joining us, Andrea. Wish we had time. Debbie Elizabeth, watching on YouTube, says, thank you guys for this show. Our world is so unloved and abused. Many don't realize, I'm guilty myself, the message of the whole Bible is God wanting to heal us and wants us to help heal each other. Beautiful note from Elizabeth on YouTube.
That's it. That is beautiful. And thanks, Take Two family. You guys are so awesome. They said, Debbie, it is air evac. That's how you get, that's the air ambulance in the sky. So thank you. Tomorrow, we're going to change it up a bit. We're going to talk about high school memories, Jerry.
Yeah. What is your favorite high school memory? That's tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Until then, have a beautiful and blessed day. St. Joseph, pray for us.
I don't like looking back. I prefer to look forward and keep moving forward. There's plenty to cover. There's a lot of folks on television. They read the questions on the cards, they wait for the answer, and then they read the next question on the card. We don't do that. We really talk like we're talking today. And I do a lot of research and try to dig out the bits and